we're talking about specifically Hungary, are we?
Yeah, I mean, you lived in Hungary for 20
That's what I
years.
have experience in. Yes, well, so living in Hungary, I mean, I think a lot of things have changed
Yeah,
recently. And the 20 years that I spent, you know what, I never actually realized until this moment that it was like 20 years spot on.
yeah.
Um, so nice. And also so like, like close.
So yeah, it's a right, yeah, it's a full, complete.
Yeah, so saying I'm still sitting here, but I mean it's good. Like I have this one job that I'm on, and I'm really glad that I came back. But that's I can
Mm.
talk about how it all comes together, which is great. But yes, so the 20 years, I think it's also a matter of a lot of things changed in Hungary in these 20 years. So back in at the beginning of well, not at the beginning, but like the end of the 90s and the
Yeah,
2000s.
that just fresh out, fresh into, freedom and capitalism after years of communism.
Exactly. And then those years were actually very promising and very like things started to improve
Yeah,
and like a
yeah.
lot of new Western influence came into the country and really a lot of things changed. For me, it wasn't a change, obviously, because I was born in 89, right? So that's that I am born with the how do you say the system change in English? I don't know what the
Yeah,
word
yeah,
for that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
So
that about actually.
yeah, that. So I was born exactly when that happened, basically. So I don't know anything about what was before that, only from my family and how we all speak about it, how you can see it on the street, how you see it in the people's mentality and all
The
that.
psychological effect, yeah. I,
Oh yeah.
I've I've interviewed a lot of, well, no, I've got my couple of Eastern Europeans already, and we all come back, from like Estonia and Hungary and different places, and Poland, and we all come back to communism is still very much palpable in the air.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And honestly, I feel like we're not necessarily moving away from it. So things at some point, I personally think that did turn around a little bit, and we are going away from what we were going towards a couple of
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah. I mean,
Which
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
good.
I was just gonna say, unfortunately, like when with freedom comes mess and self-discovery, and it's never a straightforward process, unfortunately. Especially when you talk about massive number of people. I mean, was it 8 million? What was the population of Hungary?
I think it's still around nine,
All right, okay.
something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's when you're talking about that, it's yeah, it's not gonna be a simple, streamlined. Let's just get to now. So yeah,
Yeah, so Hungary, yeah, well, it changed a lot in the past 20 years. And it also, but the thing is that like from coming from London, from Monaco, and then going back home and then coming back to London, um, the gap, what fascinates me and something that I think a lot of, and I never really find what how I actually what to do about it within me because it's something
mm,
that I don't know, like there's tension in it because there's a huge gap between these two worlds. And for me, it's incredibly difficult to talk about my experience of being Hungarian in a world out there. And now when I'm back here, I try to talk of how my life is there, and I can see that obviously people are interested and we talk and whatever, but like it's really unimaginable one for the other. It's so different that if you don't live there, if you don't go there, if you don't experience it on your own
mm.
skin, you can't really understand what the
Yeah, I
difference.
mean, there is, yeah, especially because you live in London, and London's a different beast compared to the rest of the UK. Like,
Oh yeah.
100%. Um, I did personally find that people in Eastern Europe find it easier to relate to Western Europe because of the programs and TV and culture and whatever that we consume.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that Western Europeans, because their vision, even in the media, is more turns towards the West. That it's not self-centered, but we learn about Western Europe and history and whatever. There's no Eastern European history really in the UK specifically that they talk about things like that. We're aware of the West and we watch the West and we see the movies and we consume the media and we play the video games. That doesn't really come now with The Witcher. That's like one example from Poland, right? But other than that, there's not a lot of media being consumed here looking that way. So I think people will have more ideas back home about here versus, like explaining to people here about anything really. I mean, I'm not a great example because I even in Eastern Europe I've got like a very weird upbringing and backstory, but just life in Eastern Europe and how it works and the little deals you have to do left and right with people. Even when you go to the market, you know, you go to the lady and they help you out and you help them out, and you know, there's a thing going on.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. That exactly. But it's really interesting what you're saying about the media exchange. And yes, I
Yeah,
completely. But that Eastern European rawness and like the way we think, the way we go like straight into this and that and whatever. Like just think about taxes. And that's something when I came to the UK, which truly fascinated me, that how taxes work in this country. Because for me, they do work, but I come from a place where people are like being an employee, be having all your taxes paid and getting the exact money and all that. Like these things don't exist in Hungary. Still not. We're in 2022, and if people like, how can I explain this in English? Like, let's say you earn 100 whatevers. Don't worry about the currency a month, which is obviously a made up small number, so like it's not realistic.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the UK, you will pay the full tax, or your employer will pay the full tax after that. It goes into the system. You can get, you'll have a proper tax history. You will have, you can get your mortgage, whatever. In Hungary, if you are supposed to pay, a certain amount of tax after that money, your employer will actually only put you up for half of your salary and pay taxes after that, because then it will be less. But then your tax history won't be really true. So when you want a mortgage, you won't get the mortgage because it's not high enough and all that. And that sort of little, how do we figure it out? Do we get around the numbers? Da, 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 da. That kind of vibe. It's just so strong.
Yeah, no, well, that's again, it goes back to I blame it a bit on, you know, trying to deal with communism because it was very much you lived in a system that you knew did not care about you and was not working for you. So people like I was watching a podcast about this Jack Barsky. He's a famous Russian spy that defected, and he says during communism, theft was a common economic event. Like in order to survive, you'd steal from the factory because you like it was everything was getting sent away. You had nothing, nobody had anything, so you had to literally be like like I remember the story in school we were told. So this was a story that our class like head teacher, class mistress was telling us about, you know, when she took the kids, well, she was already a teacher during communism, she took them to a factory, and all the people at the factory was telling to the kids, you know, like, it was a biscuit factory, it's like, take some biscuits, here, just take some of it, just pack it, just take it home, just take it with you.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you had to.
Life is about survival, and I think that's what it all comes down to.
Mm.
And obviously you can't really change the system. I mean, we're talking about days back then, right? But
Yeah.
then you need, what's fascinating in that, I think, is the sense of sarcasm and irony and humor that comes around.
Yes.
And that's something of my Eastern European heritage that I hold so dearly. And I don't want to lose that, just
Yeah.
because now in a world that actually functions, right?
Yeah, you know, I think we have Eastern Europeans can have very dark and gallows humor because we know, like, it's not making a difference, but at least I'm having a laugh about it, you know, like that.
Yeah. And it just
Yeah.
makes it so true. And when that comes to theatre and when it comes to like, like actual art, I think it's just such an absolutely powerful skill or tool or something that like really adds a layer of.
Yeah, it just helps you go through the day, and yeah. I mean, yeah, for some reason, all Eastern European art is seen like it's very pessimistic, and everybody dies, and it's no, like we have some of the funniest comedians. They're just like, fuck it, like what's the point? Let's have a laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.